So we are live. Guys, we're 2 minutes late because imagine I was just telling everyone that on the day we are talking about telecom, that's the same day my internet has issues. So amazing things happens, but that's how. Let me get Andrew. So that hello, hello,
Hello, how are you doing?
all's well, all's well. Everybody is ready. And today we are going to just keep it very conversational as always. What we do is trying to actually ensure that a lot of the common users can participate in DePIN, can understand it. Um, Although DePIN in comparison to any other part of blockchain is a bit closer to heart to a lot of common users. And so that just throws opportunity for everybody. Um, but before we proceed, let's first have a round of introduction. Um, Take your mic, the start, and then we will take it forward. Who goes first? Shawan? Let's go.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Thank you so much for being here today. Joe, thank you so much for the invite to join this call and talk to everybody about DePIN in telecom. Nice to meet everybody here. I had have the privilege to meet most of you guys here, so great to be here today. My name is Sarah Chedraui. I'm CEO and founder at Growww. I've been on the telecom sector for over 12 years now. I developed the first Wi-Fi marketing platform in Latam back in 2012. My previous startup helped businesses at the bottom of the pyramid to make money by selling micro Wi-Fi recharges in very low-income communities. And now I am leading Growww, which is a decentralized Wi-Fi network. It's blockchain-based and it has a global reach. Nice to meet you all.
Beautiful. Shavel, you are one of our crowd favorites. So we want to also get all of those guys who are in now to be one of our likable guests in our show. So, yes, Lawrence, let's go.
Hey, I'm Lawrence. I'm part of Qualu. We're connecting connectivity data to create a single source of truth for the internet, creating a lot of transparency in an industry that's known to be pretty behind closed doors. So, with that data, we consult governments, telecom providers to make the internet better for everyone. So, whenever you do a test, we see how you're connected to the rest of the world, and we see what parties are responsible for your good or bad performance. So, that's what we do.
Awesome. Ed,
Yep. Hi everyone, thanks for invite. So my name is Ed. I'm CMO and co-founder of Ping Network. Essentially, we're a decentralized bandwidth infrastructure, so we get lots of bandwidth hardware on a single platform from data centers, individual contributors, and providing very scalable, affordable networking solutions for businesses for like VPN routing, data scraping, or content delivery. Yep.
awesome. We have a lot of questions for you, Ed. Andrew,
Hey there, I'm Andrew Alithi. I'm also the co-founder and CEO for Carrier One. I've been in the telecom industry for quite the number of years, as well as in blockchain. I started out in Bitcoin in 2010, and here I am looking at how we actually will change the telecom industry in Canada, US, and worldwide. And so that's Carrier One.
amazing. This is the first time we are meeting Andrew, so hopefully we'll keep continuing and share the thoughts. Vadim,
Hi everyone, I'm Vadim, I'm co-founder at Telecom. We are building a decentralized real-time communication infrastructure. We have few different live apps built on top of our network, and now we're focusing on SDK for interaction between humans and AI agents in different ways. Now we have a conferencing app where you can use real-time voice translation and recognition to talk in different languages.
awesome. Jason,
Hey guys, how we doing today?
all's well, man. We are just waiting for this. seem to get hot with deep in.
Let's do it. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I think the room was just sent to me. So, um, and 1 second, let me edit my name so it actually has my fucking project on it.
Just find that three dots
Yeah, I got
somewhere.
it, man.
All right, before you fix that, today's topic, like always, has been like we always discuss specific topics, right? But we keep it very conversational, so we can actually get your thoughts. Very macro level question: why do you think that telecom industry as a whole has a disruption possibility with the DePIN? And so, Jason, you can give an introduction and possibly can answer that as well.
Sure, sure. So my name's Jason Brink. I'm the CEO of Datagram, and we are, I guess you could think of us as the DPIN for DPINs. We provide a substrate that other DPIN projects can build on top of that enhances their speed, connectivity, and makes it so that all of their uptime and usage is tracked on chain. We've got about a bit over almost 2 million users right now that are all using our product and have no idea they're using decentralized Web3 infra, which is super cool. In terms of why I think the telecom industry is ripe for disruption, a tremendous amount of it is based on sort of legacy practices, and while there's been technical innovations, um, there's still a big problem with sort of the monolithic control of the entire industry. I mean, back when this is like ancient history, but when they split up Ma Bell, the reason that they did that is because, there was no innovation, no growth. Okay, and anytime there's a sort of monopolistic tendencies, you run into situations where things cannot grow in the way that they should. And so this is ripe for disruption, and all of us here are disruptors. We're the ones who are able to make some of these changes both at a technical and business practices level. And I think that's going to be what it takes to get us to the next sort of phase of the evolution of telecommunications.
Beautiful. Anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah, so I also
Please,
think
Andy.
that, should I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I also think that the traditional telecom sector has always been too centralized and very hard for people to participate on. So it's not just about deployers around the world that are going to be able to tap into this $1 trillion industry, but projects are building stuff like distributed ownership, which allows people to own a piece of infrastructure being decentralized, being deployed in a decentralized way somewhere else, actually helping close the digital gap. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that there's these big telecom companies, and there's still 3 billion people around the world that lack internet access, right? So telcos cannot keep up, cost very small players, and it makes it just hard for almost half of the population to get connectivity every day. And as mentioned before, being so closed and centralized is what's possibly causing these problems, or causing not to get to all the people in the world. I mean, these companies are worth billions of dollars. They have billions of dollars every day of profits for their shareholders, but somehow connectivity gets worse, it gets more expensive, and a lot of people are still disconnected today. So I think there's this opportunity of decentralizing maybe not everything they want, because it's very hard to decentralize everything on the telecom sector. It's a very wide scope of things that happen behind the scenes. But I think, as mentioned before, people here are the pioneers trying to make this change on the telecom sector.
Very nice point made, Shabil. I also think that in so-called global South, there are a lot of dead zones, and that's because telecom companies think that's not their profitable zone. And so what happens is that telecom success is limited to certain urban areas. And I may sound like a bit that I'm living in a rural setup. But when you just travel, like in places to Indonesia, in certain places in India, and you just find that a lot of areas you won't get a connection at all. It's so bad, right? And why would a telecom company give such an infrastructure for an entire country? That's not their profitable business, right? They would be giving rather service to a concentrated um, population. That's where they can make quick money with the same infrastructure. So yeah, so valid point, mates. Andrew, you wanted to add something into it?
Yeah, so it's not just about what's profitable for the telecoms. The telecoms are one big giant, but at the end of the day, the telecoms have a hard sell in order to do densification. Right, our newest metrics now, when it comes down to data consumption is at its highest, and so in order to compensate for that, you have to have densification of devices on 5G. And now we're looking at Wi-Fi hotspots as a new entry into the market for telecom in order to suffice for connectivity. So it's a bit of both. Like now when we're looking at the world connectivity, 1/3 of the world's unconnected, and with that being said, there's still some incentives out there to have other companies come in and play game with the other telecoms. So we don't have to defeat the telecoms or say, we're not working with you. We got to work with everybody in the telecom industry, and that's the whole reason why there's a GSMA. But at the same time, we need to let up on regulations and change the status quo that's currently incumbent with the telecom operators. And so for us, when it comes down to Carrier One, we're trying to push more nodes and more access points all throughout the US, all throughout Canada, as well as the world, and have connectivity seamless across the world.
Do you think it is almost natural for most of the DePINs to initially work with the telecom, extend their footprint in a way? Do you think that's where it is going?
Yeah, so we're solving problems for the telecoms that they can't solve. And one of the big problems, like I said, was the densification. So telecoms haven't figured out how to densify an area where they might have, 6, 7, 8 towers in that specific area, but you see they're overloaded. So for us, we are a solution to help with deployments in areas that they can't reach, or maybe the rent is too high in that area for them to put up another radio. So for us, we're able to actually augment their network and help them out, as well as helping our end users and our subscribers out in terms of getting connectivity. And in hand, we'll be able to deploy across the world a network that's ubiquitous.
So if we just talk about Career One particularly, what would be your modus operandi? Like, would you just tie up with the telecom first and then create infrastructure around, or you will just go for the infrastructure that is supply and then you will look for the demand?
Yeah, so what we've been doing in the last little bit is we've found a lot of demand from the other telecom providers. So a lot of the telecom providers are saying, "Hey, I don't have connectivity here, or I need to offload because we're overloaded in this area." And we're basically trying to get our users through our Explorer map to say, "Hey, this is a hot area, deploy here." Now, most of the telecom providers, they kind of take offense to working with smaller providers because we would be considered another MNO to them. And for us, what we're trying to do is trying to say, no, it's okay to use us in order to augment your network so your customers have a better connectivity than what they currently have already so far. And so the whole point is to work with them instead of against them, because at the end of the day, it's all about connectivity to everybody.
One wants to add to it? Please go ahead.
Yeah, from my perspective, what we are working is mostly B2B. So we are building infrastructure for live streams like we are using right now. And current Web2 solutions, they are limited in terms of customization. And if you want to build some kind a little bit different version of conferencing apps or integrate some AI tools or agents, you will be really limited because SDKs and APIs are not really open sourced. We're building completely open source, so it improves compatibility, and of course, because of blockchain, we can use different ways in terms of economy, like using different projects, different tokens in different ways. That's the key for the first point. And the second, of course, because of anyone can deploy nodes in different areas, as we talked before. For example, even for Google Meet, when you call someone to India or to Indonesia, you're facing some issues, delays, and if you use our infrastructure, you can deploy your own nodes in Indonesia and provide better services for your users.
I've actually used Telecom, and I must say that one of the most clear communication we had when we were using. Not many, not many tools are integrated, so it is often difficult when you are putting a calendar and those kind of things. But that is in process. Once those things are done, is so clear. I have never seen such a qualitative uses of meeting links and stuff like that. So yeah, I
Thank
must say
you.
that it's so easy also. Like so I was using very actively, but then after all these calendar things comes, it becomes a bit of a mess. So I hope you are working on something so we can reuse that. um, Lawrence, you guys are also handling some aspect. The great thing about all you builders is that you are some way or other way trying to look at some pain points in the existing telecom infrastructure and giving your best to sort out that. Transparency, I have been actually um, contributing data to telecom regulatory authorities, and I must say that data is so badly collected. Like it's so how you guys play that role? Like how do you ensure that the data is qualitative? What do you do in your tech?
I mean, to the first point, I think we all have plenty to say about the current telecom industry. They're so slow, they're so old. So a lot of the cool things that we could possibly do are just not being implemented correctly, or they're just way behind. So the struggles we always face throughout our consultancy, which we've done in many countries around the world, is the sourcing of quality data from the consumer's edge. So how are you experiencing the internet? Because a lot of time from their side it looks fine, but when you're actually trying to get to YouTube or you watch movies in the evening, the quality of service is just not there. So that's what we specialize in. We source data from the consumer side. So whenever you run a test, we see how well you're connected to, firstly, the first point of contact, so the telecom, the cell tower, and then from there to most other countries in the world. What routing are you taking? Are they just sending you straight into traffic, or are they optimizing your experience by actively checking what ways, what routes are free and working properly? So that's what we're trying to do on a large scale, and that would, in theory and in practice, uh, allow all these telecommunication companies to work together in harmony. Whereas now there's so many parties involved that stuff just gets lost, and it's so hard. It's looking for a needle in a haystack. So that's what we specialize in. Yeah.
You have a very if you guys have already done monetization, it's pretty straightforward, right? Probably you will be working with the telecom companies, with service providers, that is, and with the regulatory authority, maybe, right? Um, yeah. How others are handling a bit of monetization? For Savel, it is pretty straightforward, but start still. We want to know. A lot of users want to know. Savel, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's various ways of monetization, and what we're building and working on right now, like other DePINs, is that revenue isn't tied to a centralized entity, because this means that if we don't bring the revenue in, if we don't get the clients ourselves, then the network doesn't work. So we're building something that we call the Wayro economy, and the idea is to allow operators to launch their own telecom businesses, whether it is a local prepaid small size ISP, a Wi-Fi marketing provider, or simply crowdsourcing their network growth. So we get ads from we get revenue from ads. So we have a freemium option where users can connect for free. So they watch ads within our mobile app, they get free data, and they go get connected. They can also pay for a premium service. We also have a captive portal. So we use Passpoint technology to connect our users with our mobile app. But a lot of users don't have Passpoint or don't have our app pre-installed, so they go and connect directly through a captive portal, which we can also monetize either by having a premium captive portal for the operator to monetize themselves, or by the users connecting through the captive portal via watching ads as well. And currently we're talking to
Just
telcos.
expand me in that for so that a lot of users would know. Um, let's say a regular cafe is one of your client and has the hotspot. Now
Yes,
take the
yes.
journey from there. How a normal user can access internet.
Right. So there's two networks available. One that connects you automatically if you have the mobile app, the Growww mobile app. But if you don't have the
Right.
the Growww mobile app and you're just a regular customer at the restaurant, you are going to find a free Wi-Fi network, an open network that is going to pop up a captive portal and take you through the process of connection. It's basically clicking a button, watching a small educational video, and getting online. The idea is for those users to eventually download the mobile app, because the mobile app will show them a map with all the hotspots around town where they can go and access automatically for free. And we monetize via ads or premium access via the mobile app or the captive portal. And on top of that, our network using Passpoint technology and us being part of the Wireless Broadband Alliance, we can offload data for carriers as well.
Anyone wants to add to from their side of story, please just raise your hand and go ahead.
Sure.
Yes.
One of the things that I think that is a big challenge when we start standing these sorts of things up is we get very attached to the concept of a brand and an identity and having sort of a name on the service that's provided. AWS, for example, succeeds not because users are looking for AWS. When you use an app, you start that app up and things work and you connect and you're in all likelihood operating off of some AWS server somewhere. But you as an end user don't know and don't care because it doesn't matter. All you care is that it works. The way that we handle things at Datagram is that we have what we call the protocol to business to consumer pipeline. Our primary focus is on onboarding businesses, onboarding other DePIN protocols, onboarding anyone who wants to save money on their AWS expenditures. 70 to 90% off, not bad. Get better connectivity, get smarter routing, and you're much more resilient and anti-fragile to going down. At the end of the day, those are the people that drive adoption. It's the people who have the millions of users that they want to onboard. It's the people who have clients that they want to sell to. That's I think how we focus on monetization in that way. So we basically either push the monetization through the token economy, at which point it benefits everybody, or we serve as a fiat on-ramp essentially, and then take a percentage of that and push the rest of it through into the token economy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, DePIN only works if everyone is incentivized and everyone has aligned incentives. And I think to a certain extent, having a entity at the center of things, eventually will create friction. The best way to do this is to build something that allows the company, the sort of custodial entity at the beginning that sort of shepherds it through the earliest stages, to sort of even almost fade away while the users and the network itself grows without us in the middle of it. That's where we know we've succeeded. So that's
I completely agree with you, Jason. And we are doing like basically the same thing, and I think it's very important. So if your main client is a business, you just have to remove all the friction that you can. And if talking doesn't work for them, you just be very open to working with it. And at the same time, we could use all token as like the best utility it has, like incentivization and ease of payments for like mass B2C audience. So if you have like to do lots of payments globally, there is no better way than to do it and with like a token, and it just works really well. And in our case, we price like on a usage-based model, and I think that's really important because most of the companies that we are onboarding to our DevNet right now, they've been working with like 10, 20 data centers at the same time, paying for hardware upfront, and with us they can switch to pay-as-you-go model and pay on the usage base, which is a lot more cost efficient for them. And at the same time, the data centers that we connect and we take their hardware, which is not utilized for 100% all the time, and they have all this idle capacity, they can get like more capital efficiency on the investments that we already made.
Beautiful. And I completely agree with your point, Jason, and that's a very valid one. Actually, that should be the basis of many DePIN builders. Because yes, earlier, because there are so many of dynamic things, regulatory aspect, we're still at the earliest. Um, don't want to make it a cliche, but very early of crypto adoption, right? There are a lot of things which requires hand holding, so you shepherd that, and after let the decentralization take over, right? um yeah. Andrew, want to add anything, like how's your monetization and
Yeah, so for Carrier One, we have a couple products that are attached together along with the telecom model. So one of them being KNS, which allows you to actually get a phone number, an eSIM, and you're able to actually use that in order to travel around the world. But you'll get a phone number assigned to that. That phone number will be Web3 enabled. You'll be able to receive funds to that phone number. So if I wanted to send somebody money and they have a phone number, I can actually send them a link. They can claim that link in through our process. The other thing for our monetization is the fact that anybody who operates a node on our network, whether it be a 5G, 4G, or a Wi-Fi hotspot, will be able to receive funds based on the data usage that goes through that device, as well as there's going to be rewards that are given out that are in tokens. So we have a couple monetization. But to go to Jason's point, I do agree that yes, we need a decentralized what is the centralized model for telecom, but regulation in this current day and age is slow to adapt to that. So we are starting to kind of pivot all that stuff. So right now we decentralize the RAN access network, which is what most of the radios are on. And sooner or later, we're going to decentralize what we would consider the IMS core, the EPC, all the stuff beyond that will be decentralized, where it won't be in the hands of any central entity. And then we'll try to get different organizations like ITU to kind of recognize the decentralized fashion of phone numbers. And the same thing goes for GSMA, because GSMA has piloted a program for roaming agreements and stuff like that through blockchain, which they built on Hyperledger. So that's a very good positive outlook for the industry as a whole.
Beautiful. Anyone else? Vadim, how's your monetization? Have you guys started monetizing? You haven't tried.
Yeah, I did what said before here. For the DePIN, it's very important to keep decentralized Web3 things on the network side, but for clients, you should be faced like a regular Web2 company. You have to accept wire transfers, card payments. Anyway, people want, not talking about Web3, about crypto, about blockchain, and all that stuff. That's what we are doing. We have, in terms of monetization, we have example, we have app with live streaming. It had about 300K monthly active users, and using our infrastructure, our plans, this app saving thousands per month, because we are not we do not have so huge overhead in pricing. because we're looking for mostly open source way where anyone can contribute into protocol to add something and get rewards in our token, and the whole network will benefit from these developments.
Yeah, that actually is kind of an input to my next question to all of you. In your project space or projects that you are aware of, let's simplify for the users. How do they get in? So maybe Shavel, probably easier to say.
Well,
Go ahead.
well,
How
you talk about other
someone can
projects,
participate?
correct? I think, yeah, I think.
Yours first, and then let's chill your first, and then we go to others.
Well, in our project, people can participate by downloading the mobile app, which will allow them to browse networks available nearby. The same mobile app is the one that allows anyone to set up a hotspot and earn Weiru tokens.
No, as a contributor. As a contributor. If I
Like
want to supply in the supply side.
Yeah. With the mobile app,
No.
that's how you onboard your hotspot to your account. So you buy a hotspot, you follow the in-app rules, and then you mint your NFT on the Solana blockchain. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We allow you to do it either by buying a hotspot from us. We have our own hotspots, but we do firmware. So we focus a lot on compatibility with existing units. So you can go buy anywhere from a Ubiquiti, MikroTik, D-Link, TP-Link, and others, and just turn those into Weiru hotspots as well. So we are not like the bottleneck for the supply either. So you don't depend, or the network doesn't depend on Weiru to build the units, because the firmware is already out there. You can just buy an existing unit and do it. And then using Passpoint technology, we have allowed large fleets of hotspots to get onboarded to Weiru as something that we call DONs, which is the data-only nodes. So hotspots that don't earn on a daily basis for uptime and coverage, but for actual usage only. So it's pretty easy. There's a couple of ways on how people can supply. And then I think that one of the best things that I've seen projects do to onboard users is either use their phones as nodes, because it's the easiest. You just have your phone as a node of any sort, and 100% account abstraction. I think is one of the most important features for a lot of people in specific sectors. Not all sectors need that, but in specific sectors, I think that's also the way to go. I've talked about this in the past. If we want to build a global massive network, we need to make it as easy as possible for people to provide that supply. That's why we went on the firmware route and not only our own node route. So we have our own nodes, we have the firmware route, and we have even opened a little bit more to using Passpoint technology in thousands and thousands of existing brands and models of Wi-Fi routers today.
I think one of the maybe a couple of weeks back, I was discussing in our broadcast that DePINs really need to cross-pollinate and look at that. The hardware need to be common. It can't be so tied down to their projects, right? In that way, yeah, please, Vadim, please go ahead.
Yeah. In terms of DePIN, or for example, if you're talking about our Web2 competitors, the main expenses for the company, it's capital expenses, operational expenses, and of course, it could be reduced by leveraging community for operating different nodes and different areas, of course. But there is another thing. It's cost of development, cost of support the code. For our case, we need a lot of SDKs for different platforms in different programming languages, so we can use or incentivize our community developers to help us to build different SDKs for different platforms. That's the first thing. And the second, for example, SDK to integrate different AI agents, AI tools into our network and host these tools to provide users with more features is much more efficient.
How a normal user can participate? Like, is it like, are you hardware specific, or you giving a software for them to download? How a common person can participate as a contributor from the supply side?
Yeah, from the supply side, we're completely software, so mostly we offer to run nodes, but same time you can contribute into code base, develop something and offer it. So
Okay.
not only operating node.
And do you want to add to it? And
Yeah, so we have different models for participation. And I'd like to say that we do work with neutral hosts. So those that have cell towers, have cellular devices that are put up on these towers that are mixed between different mobile network operators. We support them as well as anybody that has Wi-Fi already enabled in their, let's say, for instance, malls, hotels, airports. We allow them to add our passpoint as well into their infrastructure. So we're not locked down to any
beautiful.
device in particular. And I think that's what's a key component for DePIN specifically. On top of that, we noticed that a lot of people can't participate by deploying nodes. And so not everybody is going to be able to deploy a 4G, 5G tower. Not everyone's going to understand how to deploy a Wi-Fi access point. So another participation is people using our phone numbers. So we allow people to purchase phone numbers, as many as they want. All of it will be on blockchain, be able to use this as a payment method, to be able to send money to different phone numbers. The phone number will reverse look up to
Is that what an on-chain account abstraction? Like what are you using?
yeah, so we
On-chain
allow people
account.
to actually sign up with their phone number. So we do something called ZK
Mm,
login, which is a
okay.
product of SWI. And so that
Mhm.
allows the user to create an account without knowing anything about crypto, Web3, none of that stuff. They'll be able to create an account, create the wallet that exists, be able to interact with that wallet, be able to have a phone number for that wallet, be able to send money to an IBAN, which we're going to be coming out with in the short next little term. And so you'll be able to fund that wallet, to be able to send money to people that don't even have a Web3 wallet. And then they'll be able to sign up very easily by using Google, Microsoft, Facebook, or even Apple, as well as their phone number, however method that they choose fit for logging in. And that's how they can participate. So it's all about participation in this ecosystem for us to actually have a really good ecosystem built out.
And this is so important, um, Web3, largely what we did is, and thanks to the early developers, we made it for programmers and not for the users. Right? We have a user experience issue, and we need to quickly accept that at least before even fixing it. Um, when I created the super app for farmers with on-chain account abstraction, and they can use their email and they were so happy because they don't have to remember any seed phrase, just connect it and start sending funds. So couple of days back I said I can only take few guys to onboard, but what they did, they were talking to each other and they flooded the system to test because they were so happy, right? Because they don't have to remember anything, and they say, oh, crypto is not complicated. Well, thank God for saying that. And so, Suku, I think Suku wallet has attested that phone number, sending through phone number, and I was using it to see what impact it can create. But you are thinking 100% right, Andrew, and especially not only for the travelers, especially for this global south. Um, they don't have those fancy gadgets we have, you know. And so simplifying it is going to be like with an IBAN or something, so we can send to any phone number. That would just increase the micro payment. Of course, it's not going to handle bigger payment things if it can. I don't know whether how complicated the KYC and things are there, but it will definitely help micropayments, especially when you are traveling, and it's just a big issue, and
There, there,
it will aid places where we are coming from, like with a lot of farmers. Yeah, you want to add something?
yeah, there's a cool thing in Africa called M-Pesa Pay, and it allows you to
Yeah,
actually
I've used it.
money. Yeah, if you use that, so you're allowed to
Yeah,
send money to people using text message, and it's so easy and so quick. It makes moving micropayments super easy, especially in Africa where there's a lot of people unbanked, and so it makes it a lot easier for movement of funds. But at the same time, we built this on the focus of let's enable Web 2, let's make it Web 2 facing, but in the background there's the Web 3 components that still exist and still works. But at least anybody with
sure.
Web 2 knowledge is able to join and participate in the network. And I think that's super important
Beautiful.
because we have 1% of the world using blockchain, but that 1% really understands the niche market and how it actually works. And you still see people losing wallets all day and all night, and they might know just enough just to get by on it. But we wanted to make it super simple for somebody who's on Web 2 to understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I think ultimately
Yes.
at the end of the day, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say that ultimately at the end of the day, we have to get away from this Web 2, Web 3 thinking. Crypto's had a really, really, really big problem since the early days where, I mean, I think most of us have probably been in the space for over a decade, I would imagine, given what we're doing. I find that people doing DePIN tend to have been around for freaking ever, because we all hate meme coins. But anyway, I think that the one of the biggest challenges that we as an industry have is to kind of get away from this intellectual elitism, that crypto was born in. I mean, we all remember what it was like to compile our own wallets and to, you know, do all sorts of crazy things to get, seed phrases and, just the most ridiculously high friction bullshit that would never fly ever in the web 2 world. I mean, you add one additional click to a funnel and you're fucked. Like, you drop off is ridiculous. And so, we have to get away from this. So you web 3 thinking and just focus on user experience, focus on easy onboarding, focus on making your product good and useful and helpful to people, and they're not going to give a shit whether it has blockchain behind it or not. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, at
Absolutely.
the end of the
Doesn't
day,
matter.
they just want it to work.
Absolutely. Like it resembles like almost the inspect button of the browser, right? Completely for the developers. And oh my God, don't get me started with polka.js. I still think even if it will say success message, I will still verify whether it was successful or not. that that unsure. Even if you develop for so long, you're still unsure. Imagine a traditional user. So yeah. Um, so any other projects you think in your space? I know that there is a bit of attraction for Wi-Fi for sure. Um, like Veru is doing really good in the space. Some of my friends have actually used it, and they text me, and they before buying also they're like, which network, which network? What do you suggest, right? And they keep sending me pictures. So that um, there is a Dabba network getting a bit of a good traction as well in Wi-Fi space. I haven't heard recently from World Mobile Token, but they've been I think they passed the proof of concept would be expanding. So any such projects you are looking at actively, you guys?
On the telecom sector,
Yeah,
I think
Wi-Fi,
we're all
telecom,
here.
and
I
tech.
think we're all here, and you just mentioned the rest. I think you missed maybe yeah, healing, which was like one of the first ones. But then what I was thinking about listening to every single one of you talk, how your business works and how you guys monetize. If you think about it, if we all came together, we could build like the best telecom in the world. We each do a separate thing to build a massive telco. Like, I'm seriously thinking of putting together a weekly space with all you guys so we can talk telco all day long. And I seriously think that if we came together, we could build an unstoppable telco, crypto
Let's
space.
let's summarize.
We're in.
So it will start with Career One, then Qualu does all the verification.
And the
All,
data,
everything
and
is
Everything
yeah,
good.
network, all the
yeah,
upstream,
Right?
downstream.
Datagram comes in, ping comes in there. After that, Veru jumps in, and then towards the end, D Telecom uses the facility. We're done. I think we're done. I
and
think
everything
Andrew
is
dragged
I,
you
recorded
guys
on
in.
chain
I,
through datagram network.
we
And
got it.
everything
We
is
got it.
recorded on chain. Yeah, I
We
thought
got it.
about it
But
while we were talking. I think it's incredible that the group here today, each one is focusing on a specifically different thing on the telecom sector that we could seriously build a super app together.
I think let's look at this a different way. I think we have to look at this sort of fellowship of the ring lens. I nominate either or Lawrence or Ed. One of you guys is going to have to be Legolas. Andrew, I think you're Gimli. I am one of the two. Um, Vadim, I think you can be Aragorn. Um, well, I'll have to sort it out, but I think that we have a good Fellowship of the Ring set up here. We can make this work. Someone has to be Frodo, though. Who's the shortest?
I'll take. I'm the tallest probably, but I'll take Frodo.
Okay. You can be. We'll have a tall Frodo. It's fine. It's fine. We'll make it work. We'll fix it in
Yeah.
post.
It's just that is why at the beginning, what I was looking at, that you guys have taken one part of the problem of telecom, and you have focused on it. So I think that's so exciting. And that also proves that there are opportunities in the sector. And um, people are hungry for data right now, right? There's a lot of things going on for data, and that demands connections. And so many things are there. When I was speaking to our farmers, and we were just requiring simple connection, but there's so much of dead zones. Now we're putting Wi-Fi there so that it is easier. We have just given it to the farmers. Eventually, this is what we will do with Veru. Take some devices, put it over there so that community can use. Um, a few days back, we were onboarding our women farmers. We said, why the men are creating a group of them? What about you guys? Initially, there was a bit of shyness, but they jumped in. So 63 of them, right? And so all of them are on farms and t-shirt ready to talk about and open wallet, right? And I found it so exciting with this. They were onboarding themselves. It was simple, but yet, they were onboarding themselves. We were sending some tokens. They were sending it back. They were doing transactions. So that part is done. And now, hopefully, once we connect with Wi-Fi and hopefully some areas with Starlink, then that just creates good communities over there. So yeah, this is awesome. Um, any
Could I
parting thoughts,
toss a
guys?
question
Because we
to
are,
the?
yeah,
Could I
please go
toss
ahead.
one question to the table? The beautiful thing of us being in the second wave or maybe third wave of DePIN is that we got to learn a bit from the past waves regarding tokenomics and time to revenue and all that. So, for any aspiring builders listening, could we each share some tips on building a successful DePIN, things to look out for, things to be wary of, and where your priorities should be?
Very good question. I think Jason should start.
I've been um, I've been doing DePIN stuff since before DePIN was a thing. When we were at Gala, when I was at Gala, I was president of blockchain for 4 years there. We had the Founders Node Network, and one of the things that most people don't know about the Founders Node Network is even today, the Gala Founders Node Network supports 85% of all DHT routing across IPFS, which is kind of a mind-boggling statistic. Um, and I was like shocked when I actually learned that, because that wasn't the thing that we were tracking at the time. And then we had this open port that was having a lot of traffic, and so we just closed that port, and we're like, it's okay, good, Friday afternoon, push it to prod, why not? And the next morning we woke up with everyone from IP Shipyard like beating down our door saying, pretty please open the port back up, you took down the network, please. So I think that in the time that I've been working on DePIN stuff, the thing that I've learned that is more important than anything is that it's not a space in which you can cut corners. You have to do it the right way. If you're not going to do it the right way, don't fucking bother. Like, get someone else to do it. There's sort of expedient choices that are made, because you're trying to get something to market, or you need to do something that you have to be quick, right? But what I've found is that leads so many projects down a really, really nasty pathway of tech debt and wandering sort of in the DePIN desert without having any sort of idea what they're doing, without nodes that actually do anything. I mean, so many of these DePIN projects out there, and I'm not going to name names because I'm not like that, but so many of these DePIN projects out there have nodes that functionally do nothing, or they have uptime that's just tracked in a like single MongoDB instance, or they have these high vaunted goals, but they're just never going to get there because they're so far behind. It's one of the reasons that I co-founded Datagram, is because it was co-founded on 30 years of research and development that already existed in an already viable Web 2 company.
Also, your experience and pain point in Gala.
I had a few pain points there. Yeah, you could say. I mean, I'm not there anymore, so I don't. Yeah, Vadim, go ahead, man.
Yeah, good point. I just want to add, it's very important to understand that for DePIN, for projects with tokens with some incentive, it's usually easier to make some progress on supply side, but for demand side, sometimes you can build huge network with a lot of nodes, but without real usage, without real use case. We need to have real clients, people who will pay for these services and will use it. And of course, the projects, there are few waves of the projects, and the tokenomics must be sustainable. It means that network could not be supported only by incentive. If there is no inflow of money, especially from Web 2 world, the network will go down eventually.
That's very well, Andrew.
Yeah, so I want to add to that. We are fighting in an industry that is definitely an oligarchy-owned industry, and definitely you're fighting an uphill battle where you have giants that have billions of dollars, have regulators, politicians behind them, and it's either red pill or blue pill. You don't really have a choice. So one of the things we learned with deployment and so forth is we waited until we actually had roaming agreements. We waited to launch the token until we ensured that we had a proper incentive program, and realizing after like looking at some failures from some of the industry players, we saw the fact that your tokenomics, you start off today with your tokenomics, tomorrow you're changing your tokenomics, the next day after you're changing your tokenomics again. It's going to happen. You're going to have to constantly adapt to what the industry is changing, and you're always going to have to fight an uphill battle with these oligarchy institutions or telecoms. I mean, we do that here in Canada. We have two choices of MNOs, and you don't really have any choice other than those two. So for us, I mean, we've been in that industry for 25 plus years with other companies that we have started out in the telecom industry. And so we understand what it takes to actually build out these agreements, how it takes to get things going and moving. And hopefully sooner or later in the industry, things start to change, at least for the better and positive of the world.
Beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree. This is such a dynamic space, right? You just can't. Gone are those days where you put a tokenomics and that's it. Yeah, this is such a dynamic space. You need to adjust a lot of things because um, like the demand and supply should come in silos. That means you have to, at some point of time, look at what is the effect of that in your overall tokenomics. So it need to change. Yeah. Anyone wants to add? Saval, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think uh, people should start by finding a problem that needs a solution. That's very
Hmm.
important because if there's no problem, you can have tokenomics,
I, I,
incentives, and
are
you'll
you
just
trying to
have
say
a
that the
fake,
most of the Web3 is actually bringing a solution and finding a problem then?
a lot of them, yeah. So this
Okay.
is very important because if you don't do this, if this is not ignited by the necessity of solving a problem, it's going to be very hard to succeed. Then after that, tokenomics are important, and you have two ways, two routes. You have the route, as Andrew just mentioned, that you have to understand that you're gonna have to change them eventually, because this has happened before. You have seen that, or you sit down and work on those tokenomics, thinking ahead 10, 20, 50, 100 years. You have those two routes, and I think both are okay because things change all the time. And as long as tokenomics are not just changed because founders decide to after launch, I think it's okay. I think the community has to kind of decide as well. And also, who decides in that community for changes? Because if the change is for the supply side and just holders take the decision of the token, it's kind of difficult to make those shifts without penalizing somebody because somebody else thinks that they have the right answer when they are not the ones operating the network, right? That's another thing. And then I think, and something that we have learned recently is that, and one of the hardest things for DePIN is to get the demand correctly set up so that it will eventually be higher than the supply every day, right? It's simple math. And I think that a problem is the centralized way of monetizing the network as well. I think that it has to begin that way, and the reason why we are building this waiver economy that I mentioned at the beginning, and why we do firmware and these other methods that don't necessarily rely on us as a centralized entity existing, is so that eventually it could become fully decentralized. So and that should be the goal. Like, my goal is not to be the emperor of Wayru. My goal is to, like, if I do my job right, I won't have to be taking decisions for Wayru in the future, right?
Yeah.
And the centralized entity won't be the only one um, who's managing the revenue. And so I think for whoever's listening and wants to build a deep, those would be my suggestions to take very, very deep look in and consideration. And on top of that, and I think everybody here will agree, is the team that works with you. Your team is very important. Your team is the people that are going to be there in the good times and the bad times, and you need to understand that the team and how your team feels is one of the most important things that you can measure in a startup to understand if this startup is going to do good, if it's doing good, or if it's going to fail. The culture between the founders and the team members, very important.
A lot of valid points actually. Shavel, one of the things which I want to add people listening is that in such a changing environment, I always say that change is the only constant. Uh, you need to adapt. Like, there were so many players who wanted to do traceability and it has not been successful. The reason is the monetization opportunity for traceability doesn't exist. So who is going to pay for it? So what we thought in FarmSend, that we need to look at monetization elsewhere. because knowing about what you're putting in your body is kind of a fundamental right. And even if you are not paying, that's okay. But we took the commodity sales route to compensate for this. So our DePIN thing is we are paying money to the contributors, but our income source is elsewhere. Okay. And hope that in a few years, we'll collect enough data so the data will be more valuable than the commodity sales. And that eventually will create some income stream as well. Right. So sometimes you just have to look at what works for you. And just to extend what Vadim had mentioned, that you need to be always be careful about demand and supply. And we keep talking about demand and supply most of the time because I have seen some of the DePIN projects, they just onboard so much of supply without even starting um, their business development in demand. You know, like we didn't want to onboard so many countries because we just went like, okay, 160,000 farmers. Then our aim is to go 2 million farmers. We already started selling the commodities. So what happens is you start getting validation that whether this is correct, there is a demand or not. If not, then you tweak it early. So with every DePIN you will create for the builders out there, there will be a lot of mistake always. Like we are doing a lot of mistake than you can think, but we get a lot of opportunity to fix them early. You don't want to do expose yourself to so much. Even just think about the OG helium. They created supply like massive when DePIN wasn't even DePIN, but then they realized that that's not sustainable, and they made the course correction, right? So I think that's important to test. That is trial and error and small sample size than creating a massive presence and then realize what I have to do with it, right? So yeah, anyone wants to add something?
Yeah, so I basically have to drop off in a few minutes, but I'm very glad to hear like all the talk about like the demand and how it should be proportionally sized to the supply. And I think we had like a total 360 in the last few years in terms of DePIN projects and what we are focusing on. And that's really great to hear because I always was like pro revenue and bringing businesses. And yeah, I just want to say as well that like any founder, you have to spend like at least 30% of your time on sales and marketing and driving the demand and awareness about your product, about your infrastructure, and that's like has the same importance as the product that you are building and the success for the companies that you founded.
Beautiful. Guys, we are out of time, but it was such a wonderful discussion with you all, and I'll speak to team to pull you guys again because I'm getting the synergy that we have a lot of things to talk. And but for today, thank you so much. Thank you for giving a lot of the valuable input, and thank you, Lawrence, for that question. That was wonderful. So
Thanks for
see you
hosting,
next.
and I hope we can do it again.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
let's do it. Let's do it again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much
Take
for the
care.
invite.
Yeah.
See you
Take
soon.
Take
care.
care.
Speak soon.
Bye bye.
Bye
Cheers,
bye.
guys.
Bye. Take care. Bye.